The Montana wind howled like something alive that night, sweeping through the skeletal trees of Eagle's Rest, a forgotten mountain town perched between cliffs and endless pine. Snow fell in heavy sheets, swallowing the roads, the rooftops, the river that wound through the valley like a frozen scar. And in that snow, a girl ran. Her breath came in ragged bursts. Her hair, tangled and white with frost, whipped behind her. Barefoot, blood on her ankles. She didn't look back, not until she heard them. Wolves. Their cries split the night, low and mournful, echoing off the mountains. She stumbled, nearly fell, clutching a small silver locket against her chest. Inside it was the only thing she owned, a name, scratched in trembling handwriting on a torn scrap of paper. Evelyn Hawley. She didn't remember who had given it to her. Only that she had to keep it. The snow deepened. Her lungs burned. The forest ahead looked endless, a cathedral of black trunks and white silence. She thought she saw eyes in the dark, dozens of them, reflecting the moonlight. Then the ground vanished beneath her feet. She fell, tumbling down a slope of ice and rock until she hit something solid, wood, frozen hard. The world blurred. Pain flared through her body, bright and consuming, and then warmth. Strong arms lifted her from the snow. Through the blur, she saw a face, a man's, shadowed and fierce, snow caught in his dark hair. His eyes were unlike anything she'd ever seen. Silver gray, almost luminous. "Easy," he said, his voice rough and deep. "You're safe now." She tried to speak, but her throat was frozen. The world went black. When she woke, she was wrapped in blankets beside a crackling fire. The cabin smelled of cedar and smoke. Outside, the wind still raged. Her body ached, but she was alive. The man sat nearby, sharpening a knife by the window. He glanced up when she stirred. "You're awake." Evelyn's lips trembled. "Where am I?" He hesitated. "Far enough from the town to be safe." She looked around, the walls, the firs, the shadows. "Who are you?" "Name's Asher Wolf," he said. The irony wasn't lost on her. "Wolf?" He smirked faintly. "Old name. Fits, though." The firelight caught his eyes again. That impossible silver. He moved like someone who knew how to disappear, someone used to silence. Evelyn pulled the blanket tighter. "You saved me." "I found you half dead in the snow," Asher said. "The mountain doesn't spare the lost." She stared into the flames, her voice a whisper. "Why did you?" He paused, then said softly, "Because I couldn't leave another one behind." The way he said it, another one, made her shiver. Over the next few days, the storm trapped them together. The world outside vanished into white. Evelyn learned that Asher lived alone, deep in the woods, away from the town below. He hunted, chopped wood, moved like a man who'd forgotten what it meant to rest. Sometimes, at night, she heard sounds outside, low growls, heavy footsteps, shapes moving past the window. When she asked, Asher only said, "The woods have their guardians. Stay close to the fire." But one night, the howls came closer. Louder. She woke to the sound of the door slamming open. "Asher?" She whispered. He was already gone. Through the open door, snow swirled into the cabin. Evelyn stepped outside, barefoot again, heart hammering. The forest was alive, wind and shadows and movement too fast to name. And then she saw him, Asher, standing in the clearing, his breath visible in the freezing air. Around him, 5 wolves circled, massive, silent, watching. They weren't attacking. They were bowing. Evelyn's pulse stuttered. She stepped closer, snow biting at her skin. "Asher," she called. He turned toward her, eyes glowing like molten silver. "Go back inside." "What are they?" He didn't answer. His chest rose and fell too fast. The wolves lifted their heads, waiting. Evelyn's voice broke. "What are you?" For a moment, silence. Only the sound of the storm. Then his bones began to shift. It wasn't violent. It was graceful. Terrible. His back arched, his hands clawed the snow, his breath came out as a growl. She watched as his body changed, fur spreading across skin, muscles reshaping beneath the moonlight. The wolves bowed lower. And Evelyn, frozen in place, realized the truth. He wasn't just their leader, he was their alpha. When the transformation ended, he stood before her, half beast, half man. eyes burning brighter than the moon. She wanted to scream, to run, but something deeper held her still. Fear, yes, but also awe. He stepped closer. His voice, when it came, was both human and not. Now you know. Evelyn's heart pounded. You saved me. Why? Because, he said, his breath fogging in the cold, the pack would have killed you. And I couldn't let that happen. Why me? Asher's gaze softened. Because you're not just lost, Evelyn. You're one of us. She shook her head violently. No, he stepped closer, slow, steady. You were found near the old ridge, the place my kind buried the lost years ago. There's only one reason you'd survive that place. She trembled. What reason? He looked at her for a long time, the storm roaring between them. Because your blood remembers the moon. That night, she sat by the fire long after he was gone, staring at her reflection in a shard of glass. Her eyes looked different now, brighter. Wilder. Outside, the wolves howled again. And something deep in her chest ached to answer. For the first time in her life, she realized she wasn't running from the storm, she was part of it, and somewhere out in that endless snow, the Alpha who had chosen to save her had just defied his entire world to do so. By morning, the storm had thinned into a pale mist that clung to the valley like breath on glass. The world outside Asher's cabin glowed with quiet light, snow heavy on the pines. Evelyn stood at the window wrapped in one of his flannel shirts, watching the forest breathe. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw him, the way his body had changed under the moonlight, the wolves bowing to him like living shadows. It should have terrified her. Instead, it left her trembling with something she couldn't name. Asher hadn't spoken since. He'd returned just before dawn, blood streaking his shoulder, his eyes dull with exhaustion. He hadn't looked at her as he cleaned himself in the basin, hadn't said a word as he lit the fire again. But when their eyes met briefly in the glow, she saw it, the weight he carried. The secret she now shared. She wasn't supposed to be alive, and he wasn't supposed to have saved her. Later that morning, Evelyn wandered outside, crunching through the snow toward the tree line. The air was sharp, the world still. She felt it again, that strange hum under her skin, the faint pull toward the deeper woods. She knelt, touching the frozen ground. It was warm. Don't go further. She turned. Asher stood behind her, coat undone, steam curling from his breath. His tone was calm, but his eyes warned otherwise. I wasn't. You were, he said. You don't feel it yet, but the forest does. Evelyn frowned. What does that mean? He looked past her, toward the mountain peaks. The pack knows you're here. They're watching. Her stomach dropped. I thought they followed you. They follow the Alpha, he said. But not all of them agree with my choices. Her voice softened. You mean saving me? He nodded once. They stood in silence for a moment. The sound of the wind in the branches was low, mournful. Evelyn hesitated. You said, I was one of you. That my blood remembers the moon. Asher's gaze flicked to her, sharp and unreadable. I shouldn't have said that, but it's true, isn't it? He didn't answer. I don't remember anything before I was 12, she said quietly. Nothing. Just waking up in a foster home near Helena. A year later running away. Ending up here. You think that's coincidence? He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. You don't want the truth. Yes, I do. He stepped closer, his expression caught between warning and confession. If I tell you what you are, you'll never be able to go back to being human. Her pulse quickened. Then don't tell me. Show me. The challenge in her voice startled them both. For a moment, Asher just stared at this fragile, frost-bitten girl who'd fallen out of nowhere and now stood before him unflinching. Then he shook his head. You're not ready. He turned to walk away, but Evelyn grabbed his arm. You risked everything for me. I deserve to know why. Something flickered behind his eyes. Pain, guilt, longing. Then, softly, because when I found you, I smelled my own blood in your scent. She froze. What are you saying? His voice was almost a whisper. You're not just one of us, Evelyn. You're descended from my bloodline. The last Hale was my mother. Her world tilted. Your mother? He nodded. Before she died, she told me there was another. a child taken during the purge. The council ordered all half-borns killed. They said they'd found your body years ago. I believed them. Evelyn stepped back, shaking her head. You're saying I'm my kin, he said quietly. My blood. She couldn't breathe. The air felt too thin, the world too bright. That can't be. I'm human. He looked at her then, truly looked, his voice barely holding steady. No, Evelyn. You were human. Until the night I saved you. The next days bled into each other, a rhythm of silence and snow. Asher hunted less, watched the woods more. Evelyn learned to chop wood, to cook, to listen to the wolves when they came too close. But inside her, something was changing. Her senses sharpened. The whisper of snow on branches sounded like whispers. The scent of pine like memory. Her reflection caught light in strange ways. Her eyes flashed silver when the fire burned too bright at night. She dreamed, running through the forest on 4 legs, the world vibrating with sound and hunger. She always woke with her pulse racing and frost on her skin. One evening, as the sun bled orange across the peaks, she found Asher outside splitting logs. His breath fogged the air, his movements steady. I keep dreaming, she said. About the woods, about you. He didn't stop. Dreams don't lie to our kind. Then what are they telling me? That you're awakening. The way he said it, gentle, resigned, made her shiver. And when I do? He set the axe down slowly, his eyes unreadable. Then the others will come. The pack? No, he looked toward the mountains. The elders. The ones who made the law I broke. She swallowed hard. They'll kill me? He nodded once. And me with you. That night, Evelyn sat alone by the fire, clutching the locket she still wore around her neck. She opened it, again, tracing the fading letters. Evelyn Hawley. The name no longer felt like it belonged to her. Outside, the wolves began to howl. One voice rose above the others, deeper, older. Asher stood in the doorway, shirt half unbuttoned, the firelight cutting across his chest. They're calling for me, he said. Why? They want me to return. To choose the throne. Her pulse stuttered. And if you don't? He met her gaze. They'll take it from me. She rose slowly. You're their alpha. You can make them stop. Not anymore. Because of me, she whispered. Because of what I feel for you. The words hung between them, fragile. Forbidden's undeniable. Evelyn's breath caught. Asher. He took one step closer. His hand brushed hers, tentative, trembling. I tried to stay away, he said softly. But when I saw you in the snow, I knew the moon would never forgive me for letting you die. Tears burned her eyes. And if they find out? Then I'll burn before I let them touch you. Outside, the wolves howled louder. The sound splitting the sky. The throne was calling him home. But his heart, his curse, was standing right in front of him. The next morning dawned pale and brittle. The kind of cold that made even the trees sound hollow. Frost clung to the windows of the cabin like lace, and inside, Evelyn woke to the sound of quiet pacing. Asher was already up. He moved across the room with a restless energy that didn't belong to the calm man she'd met weeks ago. There was something sharper in him now, a tension beneath his skin, as if the forest itself was whispering his name and he was trying not to answer. She sat up slowly. You didn't sleep again. He didn't look at her. Couldn't, because of the pack? He hesitated, then nodded. They're growing restless. The longer I stay away, the weaker my claim becomes. Evelyn pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. So go back. He turned sharply, his eyes flashing silver in the half-light. You think it's that simple? I think you're the alpha, she said. You shouldn't have to hide. I'm hiding for you. The words hit her harder than they should have. She stared at him, searching his face for something, guilt, fear, hope, anything. I never asked you to. Asher exhaled, voice low. No, but if they find out what you are, what I am. She cut in. You keep saying that like I'm a disease. His gaze softened. You're not a disease. You're the cure, and that's what makes you dangerous. She blinked. What does that mean? Asher finally stopped pacing. He leaned against the table, his jaw tight. You've heard of the blood pact? She shook her head. It's what binds our kind to the moon, he said. A vow made centuries ago. It keeps us in balance, human by day, Volf by night. But there was a cost. No bloodline could ever mix with the humans again. It would break the chain. Evelyn's pulse quickened. You're saying my blood breaks it? He nodded slowly. When I found you in the snow, the moment your heart started again, I felt it. The bond snapping. The chain weakening. Her breath caught. So you think I'm cursed? He shook his head. No, you're what comes after the curse. The silence that followed was thick, alive. Evelyn felt the truth settle like snow in her chest. Cold, beautiful, dangerous. What happens if they find out? She whispered. Asher's voice dropped, raw and unsteady. They'll come for you. The council will demand your blood. And I'll have to choose between my throne and you. Days passed in tense quiet. The world outside was blinding with snow, but inside the cabin the air felt too small, charged with the weight of unspoken things. Evelyn felt her body changing. Her hearing sharpened. Her pulse matched the rhythm of the forest. At night, she could feel the pull of the moon even through the clouds. It wasn't painful. It was seductive, calling to something ancient within her. Once, she woke to find Asher standing outside, shirtless in the snow, his breath steaming in the moonlight. She stepped out quietly, watching him from the doorway. Does it hurt? She asked softly. He didn't turn. It used to. Why not now? He looked at her over his shoulder, a faint, bittersweet smile on his lips. Because the part of me that used to fear the change doesn't exist anymore. She stepped closer, her bare feet freezing on the wood. And what part is that? The human part. Something in her chest ached. The quiet kind of ache that came from knowing you were losing something you never truly had. The next afternoon, they heard it, a distant howl, long, commanding. Asher froze mid-step, the color draining from his face. They found us. Before Evelyn could respond, another sound followed. Not a howl this time, but a horn. Deep, echoing. The call of the council. What do we do? She asked. He didn't answer immediately. His jaw clenched, muscles tight. Pack what you need. We're running. He turned to her, his eyes full of stormlight. No, I'm giving them what they want. Her throat tightened. You can't. I can, he said. I'll surrender the throne. Tell them I made a mistake, that you're human. They'll test your blood, see no mark of the moon, and leave. You're lying to them. Yes, and if they find out, then they'll kill me. Her voice broke. No! He stepped closer, cupping her face in his rough, warm hands. Evelyn, listen to me. I can survive losing the throne. I can't survive losing you. Her breath hitched. You don't even know what I am. I don't care, he said. Whatever you are, I chose you. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But deep down, something told her this choice would destroy them both. That night, the council came. 4 men and 1 woman, cloaked in gray, their eyes burning with moonlight. They didn't knock. They entered as if the place already belonged to them. The tallest among them, an older Volf with silver hair and a scar down his neck, stepped forward. Asher Wolf, he said. You've broken the blood pact. Asher didn't flinch. I saved a life. You risked the lives of all our kind. Evelyn stood behind him, her heartbeat pounding like a drum. She's human, Asher said evenly. Test her blood if you must. The woman stepped forward, a silver dagger glinting in her hand. Gladly. Evelyn's breath caught as she raised the blade. Asher moved to stop her, but Evelyn grabbed his wrist. It's okay, she whispered. The woman sliced Evelyn's palm. Blood welled up, bright crimson. Ordinary. For a moment, the room was still. Then the blood began to shimmer. A faint light rippled through it, silver threads. Pulsing like living veins, the council members drew back. The woman hissed. Abomination. Asher moved in front of Evelyn instantly. She carries the light of both worlds, the older man said. You've doomed us all. Asher bared his teeth. Touch her and I'll tear your throats out. Then you've already chosen. Before the words finished echoing, the woman lunged, faster than any human could move. Asher met her midair, claws and steel colliding in a burst of silver sparks. The room erupted into chaos. Evelyn stumbled back, clutching her bleeding hand, heart racing. The world blurred, firelight, movement, roars. And through it all, that hum inside her chest grew stronger, wilder. The silver in her blood began to burn. She screamed. The air around her rippled. The windows shattered, the walls groaned. The council froze mid-attack, eyes wide with terror. Asher turned, reaching for her. Evelyn, light burst from her body, brilliant. Blinding dot, and then everything went black. When she woke, the cabin was gone. The snow had stopped falling. Asher knelt beside her, bleeding, his shirt torn, his eyes wide with something between awe and heartbreak. "They're gone," he said quietly. "You destroyed them." She shook her head weakly. "I didn't mean to." "I know." He brushed a lock of hair from her face. "But they'll come again. The others will hear what happened." Her vision blurred with tears. "You lost everything because of me." He smiled faintly, blood on his lips. "No, Evelyn. I finally chose something worth losing it for." Outside, outside, outside the moon rose full and bright over the forest, a perfect, merciless silver, and in its reflection, Evelyn saw herself not as a girl, not as human, but as something new. Something the world wasn't ready for. The forest was silent in the days that followed, too silent, as if every living thing was holding its breath. The air was cold enough to bite, and the snow no longer fell gently but in sharp, restless flurries. Evelyn and Asher moved through the ruins of what had been their refuge, their world reduced to ash and smoke. The council was gone, or at least the part they'd seen. But Asher knew better. For every elder that fell, another would rise. He hadn't spoken much since that night. His strength was returning, but his eyes had changed. They no longer burned silver. They glowed faint gold, dimmed by grief and exhaustion. Evelyn, too, was changing. Her reflection no longer looked human. Her pupils shimmered faintly, her skin colder to the touch, her movements sharper, more precise. She could hear the pulse of the woods, the quiet murmur of things unseen, and she could hear them. The whispers. At first, she thought they were dreams, voices murmuring her name, calling her deeper into the wild. But by the third night, she realized they were real. The moon was pulling her. "Asher," she said softly, breaking the long silence between them. They were sitting by the fire in what was left of the cabin, a small corner untouched by the blast that had shattered everything else. He looked up slowly. "I can feel something," she said. "In me, like a storm waiting to break." His jaw tightened. "It's the blood." The council was right about one thing. The pact is breaking. Every night it grows weaker, and it's your power that's doing it. Evelyn's throat tightened. "So I'm the reason your kind will die?" "No." His voice softened. "You're the reason they'll finally be free." She shook her head, tears burning her eyes. "You don't understand. When I killed them, it didn't feel wrong. It felt right. It felt like something ancient wanted me to finish what they started." Asher stood, running a hand through his hair, pacing. "You have to fight it." "I'm trying," she said, voice breaking. "But the moon keeps calling me. Every night it gets louder." He stopped. "Then we run." Evelyn looked up. "Run where?" "There's nowhere left." "Then we find somewhere new," he said, fierce now, determined. "Somewhere the old laws don't reach. Somewhere they can't find us." She stared at him, the alpha who had defied his own kind, who had turned his back on power for a lost girl in the snow. "You'd give up your throne for me again?" He smiled faintly, the firelight catching in his eyes. "I already did." Her heart twisted. She wanted to believe in escape, in the idea of a life beyond all this blood and moonlight. But deep inside, she knew fate wasn't finished with them. The storm was still building. They left before dawn, traveling through the frozen valley toward the mountain ridge. The wolves followed at a distance, silent, watchful, loyal to him even now. Evelyn could feel their confusion, their unease. They could sense she was no longer just one of them. By the time they reached the high ridge, the sky was bruised purple, and snow fell like ash. They stopped near an abandoned church, half buried in ice, its steeple cracked and leaning. "We'll rest here," Asher said. Evelyn nodded, her breath misting in the cold. "Do you think they'll find us?" He didn't answer. His silence told her everything. That night, as the moon rose full again, the whispers came louder. Evelyn. She sat upright, breath shallow. The fire had gone out. The world glowed silver through the broken roof. She looked toward the doorway and saw them. Figures cloaked in gray, standing in the snow. Not wolves. Not quite human. Their eyes burned white. Asher, she whispered, shaking his shoulder. He woke instantly, eyes flaring gold. Stay behind me. The figures stepped forward. One of them, taller than the rest, spoke, a voice like ice-splitting stone. Daughter of Hale, you have broken the chain. The balance must be restored. Asher snarled. She owes you nothing. She owes the moon, the figure said. And the moon has come to collect. Evelyn's chest burned. The whispers became screams. Join us. End this. Become what you were born to be. She fell to her knees, clutching her head. Asher, I can't. He caught her, his arms wrapping around her trembling body. Fight it, he murmured. You're stronger than them. But she wasn't sure she was. The light in her veins flared again, spilling from her skin like liquid silver. The ground trembled. Snow lifted from the earth, swirling around them in violent spirals. The lead figure raised his hands. The blood moon rises. She is the key. End the Alpha and her power is ours. Asher roared, a sound that shook the heavens. He shifted mid-motion, his body exploding into motion, claws rending the frozen air. The wolves burst from the shadows, colliding with the gray figures in a blur of fur and fury. Evelyn's world became chaos. Howls, screams, light. She saw Asher fighting, teeth in blood, eyes burning gold. He moved like a god among monsters. And then through the haze, she saw one of them break through. A silver blade flashed. Asher! She screamed it. He turned too late. The blade plunged deep into his chest. The world stopped. Evelyn felt the air leave her lungs. She reached for him, crawling across the snow, her fingers slick with his blood. Asher, no. He caught her hand weakly, his breath shallow. Don't let them, he coughed, crimson on his lips. Take you. Tears blurred her vision. I can't lose you. You won't, he whispered. Because you'll finish this. The light within her ignited again, but this time. She didn't fight it. She let it in. The storm that followed would be remembered for generations. The night the moon itself split the sky. Silver fire tore through the valley and everything it touched burned to light. When it was over, the church was gone. The snow was melted into glass, and Evelyn stood in the center, her eyes glowing white. The last traces of silver fading from her veins. At her feet lay Asher. Still, his chest barely rising, she dropped to her knees beside him. Tears cutting lines through the soot on her face. You chose me, she whispered. Now I choose you. She pressed her hands over his wound, closing her eyes. The light returned, softer now, gold instead of silver. Warm, human. When it faded, his eyes opened. Not gold. Not silver. Something in between. He reached up, fingers brushing her cheek. You gave me back my soul. She smiled through tears. Then maybe there's hope for ours too. By dawn, the snow had stopped. The mountain was silent again. The wolves were gone, or perhaps reborn somewhere new. Evelyn stood beside Asher at the edge of the ridge, their shadows long against the light. Below them, the valley glimmered, untouched, reborn. What now? She asked softly. He took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. Now we rebuild. No thrones. No laws. Just the two of us and the world we make. She looked toward the horizon where the first sunlight broke through the clouds. And the moon? He smiled faintly. Let her rest. We've paid her debt. Evelyn leaned her head against his shoulder. The wind rose, gentle this time, carrying the scent of pine and snow and something new, freedom. And for the first time since that night in the storm, she felt it, peace. The thaw came slowly. That spring in Eagle's Rest. The snow melted in silver ribbons that carved paths through the forest, and the mountains began to breathe again. The air smelled of pine and wet earth, the rivers murmuring like old friends. Awakening after too long a sleep, Evelyn stood on the porch of a cabin that hadn't existed 2 months ago, rebuilt from the bones of the old one. Walls made of rough-hewn logs, a roof patched with tin that sang softly in the wind. She could hear everything now, the heartbeat of the trees, the sigh of the clouds. Her senses no longer frightened her. They felt right, balanced. She wasn't human anymore. Not fully. But she wasn't the monster the council had feared either. She was something in between, a bridge between two broken worlds. And she was no longer alone. Inside, Asher was splitting wood near the hearth, the rhythmic thud of his axe steady, grounding. He looked stronger now. The wound in his chest had healed, though a thin white scar traced where death had once reached for him. His eyes, once silver and wild, had softened to a pale gray. Evelyn leaned against the doorframe, watching him. "You still chop too much wood." He smiled faintly without looking up. "Old habits. Wolves don't build fires. Men do." She walked toward him, brushing sawdust from his shoulder. "And which one are you today?" He looked at her then, the corner of his mouth curving. "Whichever one you need me to be." The answer made her chest ache. He'd given up everything for her. His crown, his pack, his name. He didn't wear his alpha ring anymore. It hung on a leather cord beside her locket on the wall. Two relics of a world that no longer existed. What if they come again? She asked softly. "They won't," he said. "The bond's gone. You burned it clean. And if I brought it back?" He set the axe down slowly. "Then we build a world that doesn't need to hide what it is." She smiled faintly. "A world without thrones." He stepped closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Without thrones. Without chains." For a moment, neither of them moved. Outside, the wind rose, whispering through the pines. It wasn't the old call of the pack, it was softer, more human. They'd survived the war. But peace, they were learning, required a different kind of strength. Days passed like this. Quiet, healing days. They hunted, rebuilt, learned to live in the small moments, the sound of firewood catching, the warmth of shared meals, the rhythm of breath in the dark. But one night, the world shifted again. Evelyn woke to a low hum vibrating in her chest. Not the sharp, ancient pull of the moon, but something gentler. She stepped outside barefoot and looked up. The sky was black velvet, stars scattered like shards of glass. And there, low on the horizon, the moon hung new and thin, a silver crescent smiling at the earth. Asher joined her quietly. "Couldn't sleep?" She shook her head. "Do you feel it?" He tilted his face toward the sky, breathing in. "Yes, but it's not the old song." "No," she whispered. "It's something else." They stood there in silence, the forest shimmering with frost. For the first time, the moon didn't demand anything from her. It didn't take. It gave. The next morning, they hiked to the ridge overlooking the valley, the place where everything had ended and begun again. From here, the world stretched wide, forest, rivers, and far in the distance. Smoke rising from the first human towns returning to the mountains. "You think we'll ever go back?" Evelyn asked. "To them?" Asher shook his head. "They'd never believe what we've seen." "Maybe they don't have to," she said. "Maybe we just live." He looked at her, the morning light catching the faint silver in her eyes. "You sound like someone who finally belongs." She smiled. "Maybe I do." Asher sat beside her on the cold stone. "When I was young, my mother used to tell me that the moon doesn't bind us. It watches. It waits for us to choose who we are." "And what did you choose?" He thought for a moment, then said softly, "For the first time, I'm not choosing between man or wolf. I'm choosing to be free." She reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. His skin was warm, grounding. "Then that's what I'll be too." As the sun climbed higher, Evelyn took the locket from around her neck. The name Evelyn Halle gleamed faintly in the light. She opened it, staring at the small scrap of paper inside, the one that had once defined her. The name of a girl who'd been lost and hunted and remade. She closed it gently, then placed it on the rock beside her. Asher frowned. "You're leaving it?" She nodded. "She's done running." He watched her for a long time, then smiled, the quiet kind that reached his eyes. "Then who are you now?" She looked at the horizon, where the sun met the snow. "Someone new. Someone free." He stood, offering his hand. "Then let's meet her." She took it. Together, they walked down from the ridge into the waking forest. The trees bowed in the wind as if acknowledging their passage, the last alpha, and the girl who had ended the bloodline only to give it a new beginning. As they disappeared among the pines, the wolves began to howl, but this time it wasn't a call to war. It was a song of peace, low, mournful, and beautiful. The world that had once demanded silence now sang with life again. When night came, a single white wolf appeared on the ridge, watching the valley below. Its eyes glowed soft silver. Beside it, a second wolf, smaller, its fur streaked with gold, leaned close, pressing its muzzle to the first. For a long moment they stood there under the thin new moon. Then they turned and vanished into the forest together. And as the wind swept across the mountains, carrying their scent and song through the trees, one truth became clear. The lost daughter had found her home. And the Alpha had chosen love over the throne. The curse was broken. The world at last was free.